Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is Lessons for Full Spectrum Humans. Today is August 15th already, and this is the level 1 recording. So the topic for today is in the recorded lessons called the rainbow journey. And I didn't have this picture that I'm going to show you that is a very accurate diagram. I had not yet drawn that when I recorded this lesson many, many years ago. So I've got it for us today, and my plan is to do some really detailed work talking with you about the way that the chakras, the way that they fit together, and also their interactions on the level of your personal experience, what it means in the way that they fit together and how they touch. And all of this is prep work for your next homework assignment, which is upcoming, but I'm not going to, well, maybe I'll give you the first chunk of it. And so you will like work in sensible chunks. So first, so this rainbow journey, what am I talking about? I'm talking about, first let's do the whiteboard. Oh, actually, you know what I can do even better? Let me show you this painting. Rainbow journey. Okay. And let me also make sure that my face is big so you can see me on the screen. So I've shown you this painting quite often. Let's say I'm making this big giant white dot over here. I don't know if you can see it easily on your screen. I'm scribbling a big giant white dot. That is like the 0th dimension, or the origins of consciousness. Where's my little sculpture? Grab it. The convergence point of the sculpture, the origins of consciousness, where it's coming from, but also the destination of where it is going to, where it's headed. And that is white light. It is the final recipe for every, so when I'm showing you this rainbow structure here that I'm scribbling over right now, that is the deconstructed recipe that culminates in this moment or this place right over here. That is what happens when you add all of these other elements up. So wait, let me get a better color that you can see better. Here I'm making a big giant plus mark over here. And let's say we're doing red over here, red where I'm scribbling red, plus orange where I'm scribbling now, plus yellow, plus green, plus turquoise or light blue, plus dark blue, plus indigo, equals this dot right over here, this white light. So that is the color, this is what we're talking about now is the color recipe of light that exits our sun. But again, I keep emphasizing in this class, that light is not just dead stupid light, stupid photons, like what science describes. It is not just some kind of phenomenon, it's just not just a waveform. We're talking about intelligence, photons as feelers, photons as a sensorium, photons as possibilities, or the emanations of the sun and the stars as possibilities and probabilities. That's the type of food that we actually eat. Even beyond eating an apple or a cookie, what we do is we eat possibilities. So all of this matters because we're talking about defining that moment of unity or that location of unity. And also it matters because we're talking about the proportions. Those very same proportions that you have been learning about assiduously in your homework have everything to do with the correct mathematical equation leading up to the equal sign and white light. So in this representation, this graphic representation, you can see that there's not the same amount of everything. Hey, you just think there's a whole lot of red. Look at how much red there is. There's a very small, tiny amount of violet. There are not equal amounts. So in this recipe, if you're making a cake, red would be the huge base of what you're making. It's like flour. And then the next thing, hey, this is some sugar. And then this is some eggs. And then we're going all the way up. And so here, vanilla, this would be like, violet, I would say, I misspoke there. It's like a tiny dash of vanilla. Like you don't want to pour a gallon of vanilla into your cookies. That will definitely taste horrible. And likewise, you can't put, so if you reversed the recipe and you said gallon of vanilla and a tiny 1/8 of a teaspoon of flour, your cake would not rise. It does not function. It doesn't work. So the reason why these proportions exist is not some random, arbitrary, or capricious reason, and it is not to impose suffering or other undue burden on you. It is because it works. This is the recipe because it works. And so wait, now I should go to the whiteboard and I should show more like what this is, who this is. Because this is you. And these are layers of your own being. So just like in the lesson, the recorded lesson, I have drawn a prism not a prison with bars on it, a triangular prism that shows white light, but I'm using gray here, coming into the prism and then being split up into its various different colors. Little tiny violet waves here that go off into this direction and all the way over to larger, longer red waves over here that go off in this direction, and all the other colors in between. I'm not going to tediously draw it all out. That prism is you. This over here, this triangular structure that actually changes the pathway and changes the rate at which light is moving is you. So now let's draw. Here's a person, my standard stick figure. You guys know I can really draw a person, right? Like, it's just really hard to draw with this pen. Let's say that is like the prism. And what is coming in is the initial thought impulse or consciousness impulse that comes in through the top of your apparatus, through your crown chakra. That is where you plug in to the cosmos. That's the little aperture or the wormhole through which you get this initial impulse. So, and I did the energy pathways yesterday, and I'll go through this again. So this is a simplification of what happens to that energy as it flows through all of these different interlocking gears, or they're like water wheels, or whatever analogy we would like to use. But I'm just going to use a very simplified spiraling downward, and the spiral goes greater and greater, so that we're creating like a vortex structure similar to the structure that you see at the bottom quadrant of this shape here, right? That you become like one of these vortices. But if I show you what the pathway really is, it's really much more complex. So press pause on that. I will show you the real complex pathway. But this is not just a unidirectional journey where we have an impulse coming from higher dimensional, less dense realms coming into you, and then having this all refract. That's the word in terms of light mechanics. Refraction being split up into its multiple recipe parts. It's not just a one-directional journey, because we have the impulse that comes into or downward from, but then we have the complementary impulse that is moving from the general to the specific. And that is the journey that we are identifying with as our individual journey, but it is the complementary journey from coming from this area of unity, unification, and high specificity into a more generalized, spread out format. So this is a lot like physical light. If you look at physical light, like here I'm going to draw a little flashlight where you have, there's the lens, and here's kind of the body of the flashlight, and then here's the part where, you know, the batteries go in, a torch, like a little electric lamp torch. If you have light coming out of the front of that apparatus, it doesn't go in straight lines like this. No, we have all used, I'm certain, even I as a walk-in have used this apparatus in the dark. What happens to the light? It spreads out like this. It makes a cone shape. It makes a very wide kind of fan shape, almost like that vortex. So that is what happens to light that is not coherent. Coherent light means that all the peaks and all the troughs fit together perfectly, and that is a laser. So if you regularly travel with a laser to be able to light your pathway at night, then your light will not spread out into a wide cone. However, lasers are not very effective. Hey, I go for my little dog walk at night. I actually don't bring a laser with me. I'm not trying to like laser the oncoming, like cars and bicycles. I want them to see me, and I also want to be able to see my path. I want that light to disperse. So it's actually helpful to me that it makes this large cone shape. But if you want your light to travel far, you want your light to be like this, which is coherent. So a coherent beam of light, like a laser beam, keeps on going infinitely. Go to infinity here, infinitely, unless it is acted upon in some way, unless it hits a barrier or something like a mirror makes it bend or makes it move or it experiences some gravity or something like that. So that is what's happening with a purely straight line like that. So what are we? What are we in terms of our characteristics and our light and our timelines? We are right now at the generalized area. We're like this flashlight over here with all of these beams of light that spread out and created all these various possibilities, multiplicity of possibilities. And the ones that are on the periphery, the membrane of death, those are not benevolent. Those are not possibilities that you really want to be experiencing. Those are the possibilities that you want to avoid. Like this is like a graphic layout of all the experiences you want to avoid exist in that zone. Don't go in that zone. So it is not inevitable, and it's not desirable, and it's not what we were originally born for or programmed to do. We were not intended to ever fly in that area. We were supposed to avoid it, whatever, like the plague, quote unquote. But that's been the problem, that we have not been fully in control of our flight through time, which is why when I start to speak about the chakras, people are like, Aurora, we hate the chakras, and we hate Saturn's cube, and we hate the 7 colors of the rainbow. Set us free. And I'm like, don't worry, guys. That is what flying your lasagna is all about. This is all about additional degrees of freedom. So to me, the way to be free is not to simply ditch the entire hacked operating system. That would be like saying, like, ditch having a body, ditch the entire structure. So wait. Go back to, we'll go to my face and we'll go through. Just to recap, everybody, what are these different layers of being? What are we talking about here? What is all of this? Red, this represents the physical layer. I'm touching my physical face. You can see me touching my physical face with your physical senses. You know that that exists. Orange, this is the emotional layer, and it's mammalian emotions. Hey, can I prove to you that mammalian emotions exist? No, I can't. Actually, I can't weigh anger or hatred or sexual attraction or any of these other things, whatever, the desire to love and hug and, touch someone and brush their fur. Like, no, I can't, capture any of those on film, on camera. But again, just like we've all used a flashlight, we've all had these experiences. Somebody needs to jump up. Come on up. You need to come up. Hold on. I got my boss over here, and she's crying. Come here, honey. Here, you need this. And then you need to jump up and be part of the party. Can you do it? Over here. Okay, I don't mean to annoy you guys. Come on up. Come here, Bibs. Come on up. There you go. Right on up. Come on, you got a fan club. Okay, I don't know if she wants to jump all the way up, but here we go, everybody. There you go. Boss is in the house. Yeah, she's kind of just like crying next to me, like, hey, like, give me some attention. Don't worry, boss, we're here. It's hard to prove physical emotions, mammalian emotions, yet we've all experienced them. Everybody has felt anger at one time, or everybody has felt sadness at one time, or everybody has felt whatever, joy or love, or whatever, more positive, benevolent mammalian emotions. The desire to like love and hug a dog, that's mammalian emotion. We've all felt that. We love dogs. Yeah, but it's invisible. It's invisible. And how about yellow? This is the level of the human intellect. I call it OS human, like the operating system of humans. It wasn't created by humans, though. It is running on human software, but it was not created by humans. Big, huge takeaway there. And again, invisible, even though most objective materialists would agree that mind exists. But still, they might not be like, how much does your mind weigh? How many inches long is your mind? Like, it is not measurable. We can't take a picture of it. Once we get past this layer of red, we're getting into invisible stuff that it is very hard for the objective materialist to speak about in a consensual way. Like, how do we have a common ground on this? That's what I mean when I say consensual here. But everybody agrees that there's somebody home, there's a mind, there's something happening up there. All of this, and so that was the definition of human for a very long amount of time. Physical body with some brutish mammalian emotions, and then a very light coating, a light spray coating of human intellect on top of all of that, kind of mitigating you from just whatever, bloodthirstily, just sinking your teeth into other people, or, trying to have sex with them, or stealing all of their stuff. Like, that's what the human intellect kind of tells you, like, wait, maybe that's not a good idea. Maybe I should do something different other than what my basic, animal instincts tell me to do. But we are so much more than that. We are all of these other layers that I define as the higher faculties. And those higher faculties have been genetically diminished and non-functional for the most part in humans for all of what is known as recorded human history. More than 5,000 years, more 5,000 or 6,000 years, that's recorded human history. And then what humans acknowledge, like 10 or 20,000 years of, and then there's just everything beyond that. It's just a blur. It's all just a blur. Like, we were drinking too much wine. It's all just a blur. We don't even know what happened back then. Those higher faculties, let's name them. Let's talk about this, because then I'm going to talk all about how this is like the transmission of your car, even though I don't know anything about cars. I'm serious. Green is the level of your heart. And people often confuse this unconditional love tone is not the same as romantic attraction, which is what's at the level of orange. If you want to hug and kiss someone, that's orange. This is about the type of love you can have for like a tree or the stars or the ocean. You do not want to have sex with the ocean. It is not possible. But you love the ocean. So this is a different level of rapport and emotional connection with something. And so we can be in love with time itself. That's what happens when we travel through this structure or this sculpture at just the right rate. When you are traveling at the right rate, you're giving and receiving an equal amount of energy, and you are totally embedded within that moment of time. That's how you make love to the cosmos. It doesn't have anything to do with the physical mechanics of biological sexuality and procreation that many humans equate that with. So I make a huge distinction here. And this love, it's not the same as like a procreative love or a romantic love with an objectified partner. It is very different. Like, you can practice this love. You don't have to be like, oh, like I'm waiting for the right person and then I can finally give unconditional love. No, it is not like that at all. You practice this as your beingness. That's a really different approach. So again, it's not that you're looking for some object of desire. This is not that type of a love. So, and practicing that mental state and emotional state is absolutely critical to the awakening and rebalancing of the higher faculties. So what do I mean when I say awakening? Right now, I would say a lot of these higher faculties in most humans that are here, they're like dim light bulbs. Let's do an actual example of this here. I'll turn off this. I'll turn off this. I'll say, oh, look, like there's just a little tiny bit of light going on over there. It's not that turned on. That would be like if you had a little tiny bit of this higher dimensional vision turned on. Maybe it was intermittent. Maybe you could see 3%. Maybe you could see once in a very rare, great while. You could kind of see and understand something, but not fully turned on. Now let's turn it on, man, turn it up. I'm thinking of like some old commercial with classic rock. Turn it up, man. We turned it up. So we have put the energy back into something that once was kind of dead-end or didn't numb or didn't have a lot of energy in it, but rebalancing too, because the energy centers, not only here at the level of communication, so I did green, right? I'm not giving short, I'm not glossing over here. This light blue or turquoise blue, this is all about the throat and communication. So throat and communications, like Tower of Babel, this has been heavily distorted. So we had diminished functionality through dim light bulbs of a lot of these energy centers, but we also have distortion, wibbly wobbliness, not good wibbly wobbly. It's not a good dance. It's a destabilized dance. Or imagine like if you were driving down the road with one flat tire and your car kind of lurches like chunk, 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 or whatever, a bicycle that's going very slowly or with wobbly tires, like you kind of go down the road but not very well. That is what the level of functionality of most of these higher dimensional aspects of perception have been like. So we have the throat chakra here, light blue, and there's dark blue, which is up here. Let me just get to this picture. That will be, I think, a lot easier. Hold on a sec. This needs to go hiding. And then this is what I wanted to show you. And I can make it bigger. Hold on a second. There we go. There. So there's an interplay. So I know throat is communication. That's light blue. Dark blue is your insight. And that's literally your inner eyeball. But your inner eyeball is not just an eyeball, it's also an ear hole or an ear ball. It's your eyes and your ears, and it can be your senses. You can smell the future. I don't know if you have ever had this experience. I used to know somebody who would smell the future, but she only perceived rotten stuff. She's like, something is rotten, but it's like it wasn't going to be rotten until a week. It's just really interesting. I'm just joking and hyperbolizing. But your inner senses is what we should call it. It's your inner eye, it's your inner ears, it's your inner senses. And that is associated with Christ consciousness, but not at all with the Christian religion. I think most people who tune into this presentation that I do at this point know my feelings on that. And then the highest note in the human octave is violet, which is right here on this sculpture. And if I annotate, it is right here on this diagram. And as I said, that is like the entry point for higher dimensional impulses. Here is an idea structure that is from a higher dimensional realm where it's the divine, from God, okay, but not a bearded sky god. And it doesn't come in the form of English. It does not say, oh, sacrifice your son, put him on an altar. It doesn't say anything like that. The voice of God does not sound like, well, I don't want to make like whatever, but I don't want to make sweeping statements like the voice of God does not sound like James Earl Jones or something, but it does not sound like James Earl Jones, okay? It is not a booming, loud, English-flavored voice in your head. So this is the issue, that these communications that come from higher dimensional, less dense realms, they are pure abstractions. They're actually like, they're not translated into an English word language. So what happens when that impulse comes in through the violet chakra? Well, let's follow these energy patterns. Do some water wheels. Let me get my little pen and stuff. So I say this is like the transmission on the car. I don't actually know what the transmission on the car is shaped like or how it works, but there are interlocking gears that have to do with shifting of speeds. And the interlocking gears here are interlocking gears of time, and they have to do with different layers of your being that are moving at different rates. So your physicality is moving at a slower, denser rate than your non-physicality. And your non-physicality has other subtle layers to it. It's not just one big giant soup of the non-physical. It's actually highly organized, and this is what it looks like in its organizational state. These are the organized, non-physical layers of your being. So a non-physical, abstract impulse of idea or energy or thought structure comes in through the top of your head, and that is your violet chakra. And then what it comes to this area that I'm circling in black, that is a very crucial aspect of your anatomy. There's an interplay there, like an interlocking of two of these gears, where your, I call it the librarian of the cosmos, cosmic librarian is violet, and your library card, or your ability to see and like take out literature and learn stuff, is blue. And they come together in this place right here. And that place is coincident with areas of your anatomy in the deep inner structures of your brain. Some places like your pineal gland and some of the other glandular structures lay in the center of your brain. But it's not synonymous with those. So the energy structures that I have visible here, let me just drink, are the end result of the healthy functioning of the physical structures. The physical structure is like the projector. Let's draw it. I gotta talk with pictures. Here's like an old-fashioned reel-to-reel movie projector. That's where the tape goes, and it goes all the way through this little body of the machine, and then it comes out through a lens over here, and oh look, it makes a light cone as it is going on the screen of reality. And here's the movie screen of reality, and you watch the pictures that happen. That's a terrible sketch. You know what I'm talking about. That is what your pineal gland is like, or that's what like the physical, biological, glandular structures inside of your brain are like the physical projector. But reality and what we experience and this whole realm of imagination and perception is what's projected on the screen. And that is the blue chakra, and it is also a highly anthropomorphic level of experience. Here I'm pointing to, like, there's like a big lens in front of your face. It's like the lens through which you look at the world, through which you understand the world. If you are a dolphin, your lens is shaped like a dolphin. You understand everything in terms of your swimmingness and eatingness of fish. Like, that's it. And we look at the world through our anthropomorphic lens and tend to project and anthropomorphize things that aren't actually human into having human thoughts and feelings. Anything from like seeing a face in clouds or a face in the mountain. We actually, I mean, like, we are so programmed to see faces. Literally, there are cells in the human mind and in the primate mind that their whole reason for being in your neurological structure is just to be able to perceive shapes that look like faces. And it's because it's a huge aspect of survival and socialization to be able to recognize faces. So we sometimes see faces, and animals do this too. Like I said, it's primate stuff. Like the eyes on the back of a moth. The animal's like, oh, it's got eyes. I better not go over there. It's looking at me. Like, this stuff is pretty deep stuff. So yeah, we tend to project this perception of faces onto abstract objects that don't actually have faces. And we tend to anthropomorphize or project our expectations of emotional range and motivation on other organisms. You know, even in the way that science has looked at what science calls the survival of the fittest and the laws of the jungle, and Mr. Charles Darwin, that whole approach to looking at nature as like a giant bloodthirsty battle of, you know, like the gazelle and the lion and the wildebeest. Like, it's all that, you know, like National Geographic stuff, the voiceover. So that's all anthropocentrism. It's all projecting human motivations and human understanding onto the non-human realm. So it's not accurate. So this is the challenge, that we get this abstract impulse that comes from a place that's not within the human octave. Let's talk about the human octave. Let's just do some music, guys. Do some music. If we associate red with C, red, yellow, green, blue, violet, and then we'll go white. But on the keyboard, it goes back to C. But this is what we would call the human octave. We start at red, and we go all the way up to violet. And then anything that's beyond there, like this, so here, I'll do it again for you for your ears. We started here, here's our physical, here's our other layers of being, here's our highest layer of being. But if we make a higher note than that, that and everything else that comes after it, we define as no longer human. We're like, that's even higher than human. So we have the human octave. And so this higher dimensional blob of white light or grayish light on this drawing that I've got here, that's coming from a realm that we define as not human, okay? And it comes into our octave here and then trickles down until it becomes a physical impulse that is physically embodied. So let's go through this process of trickling down. And as it trickles down, it gets slowed down and it gets distorted. And the distortion doesn't have to be a bad thing. It doesn't have to, because whenever I use the word distortion, I think we have a negative connotation of it, like something gets worse. I don't think it necessarily has to get worse in that it becomes less distinct or less focused. Remember, we're like the opposite of a laser beam. We are taking something that is very focused and very unified and turning it into something that is split up and spread out. And that makes us. We're the rainbow. We're the thing that is split up and spread out. But what we're on is this journey of then reintegrating all of the aspects that have been fragmented or refracted into these not only individual aspects of self, but individual beings that we then reintegrate. The other level of the journey is everything going from the physical world down here, this hugely all over the place, very general, undefined area, and circling back into levels of being very, very tightly focused, and then going back up in that direction. So it's a bi-directional journey. It's not a unidirectional journey. It's not a one-way highway. It's a two-way highway. Let's talk about this actual impulse. And I'm just trying to find like a color that you can actually see effectively. Maybe this bright green. No, you can't see that at all. Here, I guess black is the best one. The impulse enters into the violet chakra. It comes down to this area over here where those violet and indigo chakras meet and interact on a profound level, just like the way that your heart and lungs meet and interact on a profound level here. And then the impulse travels to this area of your throat, where in this direction from top down, it's being clothed with words. It's naked. It doesn't have structure around it. So we take this blob of consciousness and we put it in a box. Here I'm drawing a little box, a little pastry box for it, because it's a gooey donut and you don't want it to leak all over. You put it in a box, and then it can go through the clearinghouse of the heart. That's where I'm circling now, a big, giant, big, fat circle. So this is the clearinghouse. It's the hub. It's like the CPU or central processing unit of your body. All impulses going up and down through your entire superstructure need to go through that energetic portal. So the heart tone is really about acceptance. That's it. Acceptance does not mean hugging. If you accept a demon, but basically what you do is, or something that's evil, you say, hey, you're a demon. That's it. I see it. I accept that. You don't say, ooh, I think that's not a demon. I'm squinting. It's a unicorn. No. Or you don't say, oh, like, you're only half a demon. I'm going to close one eye and make just a half a demon. Like, no. If you perceive something with your higher dimensional faculties and it goes through the clearinghouse of your heart, you accept the information that is coming to you. You don't edit selectively and say, I'm going to believe this, but not believe this. Or I'm going to let half of the information come through, but not the other half flow through. That's a big, huge part of that function of what your heart actually does. What the functionality of your heart is acceptance. And that's also a big part of the structure of cosmic law, that you accept. You don't try to make something or someone be different or other than what it is. And so if something is profoundly evil, it is profoundly evil, and you don't have to try to make it otherwise with your perception. Big, 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 I know. So it goes through the impulse, the jelly donut in bakery box goes through the clearinghouse of your heart where you accept it, and then boom, it reaches here. This is the level of yellow, what we define as human, what we define as me, the ego. Me, that's me, that's me. But actually, all of this stuff where I'm scribbling over here, that's you too. That's you moving at a different rate. So now we have to talk about redefining our sense of self. Again, you're not just what humanity has been defined by for thousands of years, red, orange, and yellow. You're not just this little boring aspect of the music. You're also that part too. And you're actually white light too, but that's when you are completely unified. So we're just not at that level of the journey yet. The impulse that is the jelly donut thought structure in bakery box hits your intellect right here. And that's when we say, oh, I had a thought. But what you really happened was that's where the impulse finally reached on its journey, and you have an intellectual thought. And then the intellectual thought goes down to this level over here. This is the joining together of your physical and emotional. So just like we have that joining together up here at the center of your brain or the top of your spine, we have a similar joining together at the bottom of your spine, and which also involves your sexual organs, which are your connection to divinity and life force energy. They're huge power centers and entry points. And also there's a lot of food entry going on over here. But you say, wait, food goes into my mouth over here. Yeah, but I'm talking about absorption. I'm talking about where your intestines are. That's where food, which is emotional energy, comes into your body by being absorbed in your intestines. So that intellectual awareness then reaches the level of physical emotional. The thought gives you an emotional impulse, which also has a biochemical signature. So it's physical expression and can make something happen. Like it can make your arms and legs move. It might make you, like the intellectual impulse, the thought structure might be, I am hungry. And that might make your arms and legs and tummy move to the refrigerator to get some food so that you're no longer hungry. Whatever. What's the impulse? Maybe like a saber-toothed tiger is behind you, and you finally get that understanding down to here, and then it gives you all of a sudden very great concern that makes your arms and legs move to run away from the saber-toothed tiger. I'm using, ridiculous examples, but you understand what I'm talking about. That's a basic structure coming into physicality. But now let's talk about the journey going from physicality into non-physicality. And the best way that I can describe this is with food, even though what we're doing this also with all of the sensations of the sensorium. So we're doing this also with light, with music. You eat music with your ears. I have like one of these Apple things so that you can listen to as many songs as you want. Because my ears are very hungry. I need to listen to new things. I need to listen to things all the time. When you're listening to music, you are eating sounds with your ears. And when you're looking at things with your eyes, you're literally eating photons with your eyes. But I'm going to use something just like food, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. So we will not be, excluding anybody that has dietary restriction. Going to eat a sandwich and tell you about the journey of what happens, because this is solidified light. My lovely, delicious sandwich. This is so good. I'm eating it. Actually, I should eat a real cookie. I'm hungry. I eat a real sandwich. What happens? First, we have physicality. The sandwich enters into your physical body. Then we have the emotional energy that comes from that. Food contains emotional energy. Food contains emotional energy. Food contains emotional energy. And the emotional energy puts us into motion. Emotional energy. So in terms of choosing diet, nutrition choices, what I would recommend to everyone is try to choose the food that has the best emotional energy, that has the best frequency. And I think that, actually I can't tell. I was going to say, I think that you guys can tell. I actually don't know, because sometimes people write me messages and they're like, Aurora, like, how can you see all these things? Like, I sometimes presume that everybody can do this. You're on the journey to doing this, let's say that, but maybe not everybody can do this yet. But when I go to like a food place or a bakery or a buffet or whatever, I can tell what's the good food that has like the best nutrition. Like I think that it is possible to perceive with your eyes like the glowingness of how wonderful it is. There used to be this wonderful bakery in Woodstock years ago that was literally called Heaven. And I didn't eat the pastries there. I just loved to visit their bakery case and look at all of the different pastries. They glowed beautifully. That was a beautiful place like that. So yes, if there were pastries with real flour and sugar in it, like it wasn't just that it was a special, whatever, gluten-free or something like that. It wasn't that. It was a regular bakery, but they made their stuff with wonderful stuff. So that's what I'm trying to say. I get my chicken sometimes at a local place. It's just down the road here. They do a beautiful little barbecue on the weekends. Like they have it cooking outside. And when I come into the store, and they know me at this point, they're like, hey, you're here for your chicken. I'm like, yeah. And, it's all lined up in the case. And like, you look to see like, which is the best piece of chicken. You guys know what I'm talking about. It's not just like, oh, that one has like the best, crispiest skin or whatever like that. Like, it's like, you can see it, it's glowing. So I'm trying to say that in terms of eating food, some food has wonderful life force energy and vitality in it. And part of it is in the quality of the ingredients. Part of it is in the loving preparation, presentation of it. And some food is like not high quality. And I think that you don't merely have to smell and taste it to be able to sense these things. You can also sense them long range. When I'm talking about this, I'm talking about I attenuated. I touched with the tendril of my attention on these different things in order to see and that bakery was way back when I like first came here as Aurora, and I would like go in there and I would sense all of the pastries with my pen, with my attenuation. You know what I'm talking about, with my inner sense. My inner sense be like, oh yeah, these look like good pastries. But then some things that I attenuated on that I could tell like that's not food at all. You know what? Cup of soup. Like that, you just add water soup, I think whatever it is called, reconstituted soup, that is like, you don't even have to taste or smell that to know, like you just sense it. You can sense there's no actual nutrition in there. So yeah, I don't mean to make this a diatribe about food, but let's talk about like, what is the energy that we're actually refining here? It's consciousness. Where does consciousness come from? It comes from the sun, and it comes from food. And it comes from food because food is solidified sunlight. So you take that solidified sunlight, chomp it up with your mouth crystals, digest it in the cauldron of your belly, and it starts to give you emotional energy. So that's the first thing that happens. You eat the sandwich, it goes into your physical body. Then it travels upward, let's choose a different color, and starts to give you emotional stimulation. So here's that sandwich that is now going upward into your emotional center, and it's giving you energy, literally. Food is a huge part of not only what motivates us to do stuff like, hey, I'm hungry, I gotta go get some food, but food energy is what makes us walk around and do stuff. And that is noble and that is good. Like people here are so at odds with the idea that you have to eat food in order to do stuff. Like, no, that's the whole partnership of what you're supposed to do. Like the same way that ruminants like eat grass and poop it out and make more grass, you're supposed to eat food and refine this consciousness and send it back to the sun, and then the sun makes more food and more consciousness for you. And of course, at a certain point, we just simplify the circuit and we get our energy directly from the sun. You don't actually have to eat the sandwich, but right now we're in this level of reality where we're eating the sandwich. The sandwich gives us energy, and the energy, the emotional energy, then gives us thought energy. So here I am back at the level of human intellect. This yellow level, even though I'm drawing with orange over here, the level of human intellect. It is hard to think if you don't have adequate calories. Your brain works on glucose, but also on healthy fats. Like it's hugely important to have enough of this physical, substantial life force energy to be able to even think and perceive properly. And so, what are we transmitting or translating? The actual sensation of like, that's peanut butter and jelly. That's what that tastes like. It's an analog experience. So what do I mean when I say analog? Like, let's talk about an old-fashioned record. Old-fashioned record that's like, round, and you have a little thing with a needle on it. It's analog. There's actual little bumps on that record that represent the song, and the little needle going across the little bumps makes the needle jiggle, and it makes the song come out. We actually have actual taste buds and actual sensations in our body. We're like an analog record. And what we're doing with this experience of refinery is we are refining our analog experience into something that is purely abstract. In previous lessons or previous years, I would have used the word digital, but I don't do that anymore because we're fighting this battle that's like against the digital artificial intelligence type of world. So I don't want you to think, we're so embattled, exactly, that I don't want you to form this negative association to taking the analog experience and making it into a non-analog or a recordable experience, like a binary type of experience that can last forever because you're recording it for yourself. that at a certain point you will no longer have this level of body. Let me drink a little bit here. You'll have a different level of experience and a different level of physicality, and you won't have taste buds anymore. And what are you going to do? You're going to have to rely upon all of the experiences and nutrients that you collected at this point. It's like saying when you're a caterpillar, you eat a whole bunch of leaves and you get pretty chunky, you get pretty wide, and then you transform into a butterfly, and you do not eat any leaves anymore. And literally all of the protein that is ingested during a caterpillar's life is what the butterfly, the adult mature winged form, utilizes for its egg production. So what happens during the caterpillar life is hugely important to the adult winged, more free, more elegant form of your body. So the food that we're eating now really matters. Really matters. Eat the food that has the best life force and vitality, because that energy that we collect now in this caterpillar-like form is essential for our journey when we no longer have taste buds. And so I talk about this too. Remember the chicken. Like, I'm like eating that fried chicken. I'm like, oh, it's so good. Like, take a recording with your taste buds and send that recording to yourself in the future for when you no longer have taste buds. That's what we're doing with this. So you take that intellectual memory or experience of what you're doing. It goes through the clearinghouse of your heart. Now that's what I'm going over through the scribble here. Through the clearinghouse of your heart, and you accept everything about all the senses that happens. What happens here at the level of the throat? Do we put the jelly donut of consciousness into a bakery box? No. It came in a bakery box. That is the intellectual thought structure. It's a verbal thought structure. Like, I am eating a sandwich. That's what it sounds like. That's the box. That's the shape of the box. Don't eat the box. Eat the jelly donut inside, the wonderful, gushy consciousness tidbit that is inside of there, the intention. What is really in there? So this is where you take away the verbalization that encapsulates the idea, and you just have the raw abstraction, just the raw form that then goes up to here. And that is back to this area over here. That's like a transmitter. Now you're transmitting the raw, uninterpreted data of your experience of being embodied in the flesh and having an impulse. That could be like, I'm eating a food, or I'm hearing a music, or I'm seeing something, or maybe I'm doing all three, because I do that sometimes, like I look at a painting while I'm listening to music and I eat a sandwich. Like, I'm transmitting a lot of foods to myself in the future. And that's what we're supposed to be doing. So if you're distracted while you're eating your food or while you're doing all of your stuff, you get a backlog. You get stored up hard drives or stored up adipose tissue, lots and lots of fat on the outside, because it's like unprocessed information. So what you want to be is in rapport. You want to be giving and receiving an equal amount. You want to be taking in an equal amount of consciousness and sending back an equal amount of consciousness to the sun and stars. Let's talk a little bit now about the way that these things, I know that there's questions in the chat too, but I'm on a roll. Let me clear everything out, and then I'll go to the chat questions. Wait, clear all my stuff out. Go back to this. All of these things fit together. I think you can see when I draw with orange. All of these things fit together, and they don't fit together in an arbitrary way at all. Like, here where I'm highlighting in orange. That is where the green, I'm just going to say it's like a wheel. There's like a wheel that hits onto this membrane that is yellow. So what is green? I'm just asking rhetorically, but you are an intelligent group of people in this class. I love you very much. You know that green is the level of heart. You know that yellow is the level of human intellect. So we can understand from this chart, from this graphic depiction, that there is an interplay between green and yellow. Now wait, hold on a second. I gotta clear this all out. Clear it all out. Stop this. Now I gotta move things. Oh, I came to class prepared. I just want to make sure that you can see the things that I'm actually trying to find. So I don't want this picture. I don't want this picture. I don't want this picture. Oh, I'm showing everything I don't want. It's one of these other ones down here. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Maybe this one. There we go. Okay. So wait, that's good. We've got green on there. Nope, not that one. Okay. Like, I'm not confusing you enough, right? So this is your next homework assignment. Can I do the annotation? I don't know if it'll let me annotate. Oh my goodness, it's so persnickety sometimes. Well, I'm scribbling my cursor over this area that is this red line. So what we have here is a simplification. Remember, you've done homeworks 1, 2, and 3 that are basically how you build this 4-petaled shape. And what I did initially was have everybody, here, can I, there, oh my God, like the gods are smiling upon me. Here we go. Initially, what I had everybody do was use this central convergence point as the convergence point for all of your overlapping chakra slices, because these are like cross sections, right? But now what you're learning is the way that they nest together, the way that they fit effectively together. So this is the first very simple assignment, is to draw this red chakra shape. So it would be whatever your primary circle size is. So for some people it was 12 inches or 12 centimeters, because 12 is a fun number to subdivide. It works pretty well. So you're going to draw this larger red structure, and then what you can see is this area over here. I call it a cleft. It's kind of less sexual than calling it a bosom. But we've got this little zone that the blue nests perfectly within. There is an interplay between your physicality and this. So in my system of circle templates, if this is 12, red is 12, then this dark blue indigo chakra is 2. So there's a relationship. There's an interplay between these numerical values, 12 and 2, between these size ratios, and also between these, let's call them frequency, wavelength, between these waveforms. And someone in a class once asked me, like, Aurora, like, does this translate directly to the spectrum of physical embodied light? No, it does not. So this is what you have to understand. We're working with consciousness light. It's not a direct translation to the actual millimeter or waveform length of physical light. The proportions don't work. It's not like what I'm showing you here. These are proportions of time, of your time body. So don't be too literal in thinking that this represents physical light. All of that slice of, like, if you have, infrared, visible light, and then microwaves and X-rays going and gamma rays going all the way on up, human visible light is still all red chakra. That is all red. It's physical light. It's what you see with your physical, gushy, juicy eyeballs. It is not internal or consciousness light. So all the paintings that I paint, I'm not seeing them with my physical, gushy eyeballs. I'm seeing them with my inner eyeball. So what I'm giving you are these proportions that have to do with consciousness, or the light that emanates from the sun on a level of pure consciousness, not on physical light. I have to make that distinction. So there's an interplay between the number 2 and the number 12. There's an interplay between this level of consciousness that is red and this level of consciousness that is indigo. The two things fit together. So your homework assignment is to draw this larger structure that is red, and then to draw a smaller structure that is indigo. That would be the 6th chakra. So for anyone who might not be able to perceive colors in this class, this is good, because all of these, like, even if we were working completely in black and white and tones of gray, this is also about the size of circles that can fit in there. So as I was figuring this out, I work very visually. I work with actual templates. I drew everything, and then I said, hey, what fits here? What fits here? And I went through all of my templates and I found out what fits. That's how I did it. So I want you to understand, just like some students have magnificently performed their homework by folding their paper kind of like an accordion in order to subdivide their circles, that's similar to how I worked. I couldn't figure it out. I didn't know how this all fit. So what I did was I just drew things and I put circles and I put templates over it. So, and I know that in this drawing here, there's this other green structure. You can ignore the green structure. Just do a simple drawing of red plus indigo and look at the way that they fit together. And because what you're doing, if we say, because remember, indigo and violet, they fit together. So that's that upper place at the center of your mind and brain where it fits together. And this is that lower place at the base of your spine. So what I'm asking you to do is to start to learn the top and bottom of this circuit, or of the spine. This actually represents your spinal column between these two little points that I'm connecting with that wavy line. So that is what the homework assignment is. I know this takes 10 million years for me to actually describe it. So for me, it would be a 2-inch circle and a 12-inch circle, but whatever your largest circle, and then the one that is 1/6 the size of your largest circle. And they should be color-coded to red and indigo. Okay, oh my goodness, let me check out the chat. I know that there's a lot, and I can't read it while I'm going through my thing. Okay, good. Hold on. Elsa, if you don't mind, let me just drink a little bit of water. Oh, hi. I see we have a young lasagna participant. Awesome. Good to see you. Good to see you, sweetie. Pedro says, we are mushy rainbow blobs of light. I love it. That works. Wow, all these years reading sci-fi taught me to avoid glowing food. Very good. And we do have to worry about Fukushima and like, you know, three-eyed fish and things like that. Hi, so good to see you. Thank you for being in the class. Yes, actually, we really do have to worry about irradiated food quite a lot. So the glow that I'm talking about, I would say, would be defined by some people as biophotons or a life force energy, or just a sense of like, that is food that looks good. You know something, it's not necessarily if something looks like the most perfect polished apple or tomato. I think we can all tell, like we've been to supermarkets where we've seen like the styrofoam tomatoes. They might look red, but you cut it open, it's like styrofoam inside. It doesn't taste like a real tomato. But I have ugly tomatoes out of my garden that taste like real tomatoes, and they might not look that nice or whatever, but they're like real tomatoes. This is what we're talking about. Even in terms of bread, like when I walk through the bread aisle at most regular, you know, large chain supermarkets, the smell of the bread, it doesn't smell like wonderful, nourishing bread. Like when you walk through a bakery, it's supposed to smell like, oh, like even the smell is supposed to be nourishing to you. That the smell of the bread that comes in bags in the grocery store at this point, it doesn't smell like bread to me. It doesn't smell like life force energy to me. It smells to me like acid, or like something that is like fermented in some way. It smells, I can't even describe it to you, but it doesn't smell like food to me. So these, you know, it's very subjective when I'm telling to you, but I'm sure that you, with your own, each one of you, with your own senses, you're able to, and with your own desires, like if you don't like barbecue chicken, I understand, but whatever is the thing that you like the most, I'm certain that you can look at an array and be like, that one looks horrible, like that is not a good wonton, I do not want to eat that one, and that one is the best one. And I can tell. And it's because some of them have life force energy. And also life force energy can be imbued upon a substance. Like this is grandma's cookies. Grandma's cookies versus factory cookies. It's the same water and flour and sugar. It's not like they're so molecularly different, but grandmother puts care and intent into the way that she forms things together and makes them for you. And that's very, very different than some giant, you know, factory mixing thing and just kind of blops it out. And it's food, but it's not the same, because intention and consciousness is part of the structure of our food. That's part of what we are refining here in our journey of consciousness. So if grandmother makes some food for you, putting all of that intention and love and physical energy into it, you then have more stuff to refine in terms of your own journey, sending stuff back to the non-analog version of yourself. Sharon says, I know when the organic peanut butter is now off, I think of the jar and suddenly feel disgusted. Time to buy a new peanut butter. You totally get it. That when you say you think of the jar and feel disgusted, I would describe that as reaching out or attenuating with your tendril of, you know, inner understanding, and being able to sense on a non-physical sense whether something is good to eat. This is what we're all supposed to be able to do. Like, this is a survival skill. If you imagine that we lived in a world that was, you know, like a simple hunter-gatherer world, it would be so much more effective for us if we could kind of be like, send out a tendril and see if the berries are good to eat. I don't know, like, are they good? If they're poisonous, are they ripe? Like, all of these types of explorations, so much more effective to be able to do it without actually having to endanger yourself by actually eating the stuff. And same thing here, like right now we live in this world that, you know, up until this point, it's just the food supply has been horribly distorted, and it's full of all sorts of like things that you don't want to eat ever. So, you know, even something that might say organic, it might have all of these residues and glyphosate, and there's you know, glyphosate residues even in things that say organic, like organic wine. So they're finding out like it's in everything. It's in the rain, it gets into all this different stuff. So you can't go by what the label says. You have to go by what your senses tell you, and it's way better to sense beforehand. Like, is this good to eat? I don't know, let me sense beforehand, as opposed to having to actually eat it and then be like, okay, like that gave me a tummy ache. That was not actually good to eat. So yeah, way better than having to do the trial and error. Just a sec. So Patricia says, so which one is it? Do we want to stay physical and eat food, or do we want to transform and eat light? Thank you for asking me that. because we're totally on the journey to transforming and eating nothing but pure light. And forgive me if I repeat, because you guys have been in my class for so long. When I first came here into this body as Aurora, I thought like, oh, I'm just going to eat nothing but pure light. Like I didn't understand the rules of being here in this particular body, in this particular social context, etc. And it wasn't possible back then. And I learned that lesson pretty quickly. So I eat light, and I still do, but I also eat real sandwiches. And we're moving into this time where the real sandwiches are not going to be necessary anymore, but we're not there yet. And you don't make that type of a move into eating, nothing but pure light or pure consciousness. You don't do it casually. And you don't do it because like, oh, I just want to save on grocery bills. I kind of know, like, do I have enough money this month? I don't think so. I think I better turn into a light eater. That is not the motivation. It's a huge thing. Like how getting a tattoo is a permanent thing, or like some kind of like radical body transformation. It's not just like dyeing your hair. It ain't going to grow out. Like it's a radical transformation. You really have to consider this. Did you eat enough cheesecake in your life? Like, did you taste all the things you want to taste? Because you have to be willing to go into this new format and not be feeling like anything like, oh, like I'm gonna miss donuts so much or whatever. Like you can't feel that way. So you got to do it joyfully is what I'm trying to say, that you would joyfully springboard into your new life as a butterfly, and you ain't gonna miss mushing up leaves like the caterpillar. You're not gonna be like, oh, I miss my caterpillar leaves. You're gonna be like, woohoo, I get nectar. So yeah, it's not gonna, and there's no flip-flopping back and forth. You can't become a butterfly and then be like, I miss those caterpillar leaves so much. Let me just do a little bit of eating some caterpillar leaves. Like that does not work anatomically at all. So it's a big change. It's a big inner transformation. And it's also highly significant to society. It's a very big thing. Like it's becoming something that would be defined as impossible or superhuman, or beyond what the definition of the octave of humanity is. Like if humans are, and you become, then maybe you're not just defined as human. Or maybe what we can do is expand the boundaries of what we call human. Like human used to be only this many notes, but now human can also be this many notes. And that's what I think we are doing, actually. I think that we are redefining or expanding or reclaiming our higher dimensional aspects of self, and that's who we've always been. And that this has been an artificial bifurcation of saying, like, we're just these brutish animals that eat a bunch of stuff and grind up with our mouth crystals and poop it out. We're way, way more than that. So it's a question of expanding our definition of self and our boundaries. So, Patricia, it's a wonderful question. The fullest answer is, while we are here, embodied in the physical, please do not be in conflict with the fact that you got to eat something to stay alive. Don't be so ethically in conflict that you feel like you want to have some kind of starvation so that nothing has to die for you to be here. That is not effective. The truth is, you're a musician and you're supposed to be here. And if you need a new guitar pick or if you need a violin bow, you should have the things that you need to be able to play your music. You should have a sandwich to be able to be here and have your instrument actually work. So stop feeling like the whole, like, I'm not worthy type of thing. Eat, and of course, eat the best food possible. But eat all the things that you're eating, knowing that, like, it ain't going to last forever. It ain't going to always be this way. We're on the journey to becoming a radically different or profoundly different shape or functionality as biological beings. Even the word biological will change in our definition of what it is, because we'll be like bio-light. That's what I'm talking about. Biophotons. This is light photon. It's a biological light. Like, we're becoming biological light beings. That's what we're becoming. And biological light beings eat biological light. And right now it's in the form of a cupcake, but at a certain point you won't need the cupcake anymore. And what will the experience be like? It will be like a mind-created realm, and not just cupcake. Anything that you need or consume. Dress, cup, sculpture, house, room, all mind-created realms. So when you get to this transformed level of becoming a butterfly, you really recognize you're creating the world with your mind, you're creating your food with your mind, you're creating your body with your mind, you're creating all this with your mind. You live in a mind-created realm, and you directly begin to create these experiences. So then you know, like, oh, like, I'm magically creating this sandwich. I'm magically creating this magically. Like, how can I even describe this? The word, like, unexpectedly, or without any way of being able to explain its existence. Just popped into existence. There's the chicken. There's the sandwich. There's the thing. It didn't just pop into existence. You thought about it. So you bypass the idea of the sun having to think about it and the tree having to think about it and the cow or the chicken. All of it doesn't have to think about it. You thought about it so that you could have the experience, so that you could beam that experience back to the sun. This is what I'm talking about. You got to get a life upgrade. It's a big upgrade. And once you do that upgrade, again, you'll drink nectar. You'll do this mind food. You won't miss physical cheesecake. You'll still have sensations. I want you to know it's not like you go on some kind of a horrible like starvation diet, or like they just whatever put food into you through a tube. It's not like that. It's not like food through a tube. It's very enjoyable. It's good. It's the way it's supposed to be. Patricia says, so you say to honor the physical, and I understand that, but then you say we're not supposed to have to chew food with our mouth crystals, and that we're supposed to be light beings. So what are we supposed to be? Yeah. So we're using our teeth to chew our food. It's a total misappropriation. It's like, imagine I'm looking for some really delicate equipment, like my camera. Imagine if I was like, oh yeah, like I just need to like hammer something into the wall. I'm just going to take my delicate camera, like use it to whack the nail into the wall. Like you'd be like, oh, like I'm cringing. Like this is a delicate thing. This is not supposed to be used for blunt force. That's exactly what's going on with our teeth. We're not supposed to use our teeth crystals to like mash things up and cut and chew things and grind it down. Like that's why they don't last that long usually for most people. But while we are in this body in this form, it is necessary to do so. So I use my mouth crystals to chew things up. I chew my beef jerky while I walk down the street and my neighbors watch me. Like, that's life. That's life around here. I have had to make many accommodations to life around here, but I know that it ain't always going to be this way. So please be at peace with the idea that we need to reappropriate the functionality of our mouth crystals for a little while we are here, but it ain't always going to be that way. Pedro says we are physical beings because our DNA got hacked. We are physical beings. That's not actually a truthful statement. First, I'm going to read your things, then I'll respond. Pedro says, we are physical beings because our DNA got hacked. We have to eat food, and the idea is to use FRL to get back to our original DNA and eat light. I agree with all of the rest of it, but not the first part. You say we're physical beings because our DNA got hacked. Or maybe it's just grammar or whatever, but I will say, we can be physical. We have been physical without the DNA hack. That's what life was like for us in Atlantis, and we all ate nothing but sunlight. That's what life was like back then. We were physical, but not hacked. Then we got hacked. And now that we've been hacked, this is my patch code to be able to not be hacked. So I'm not sure if we were just having a grammar, if it was an Oxford comma issue, but yeah, you're totally on it. That's the whole idea, that when you transform on this level of your DNA, you no longer eat physical food, and you live in a mind-created realm. And you're using your mind in order to directly create matter. Pedro says, does that mean that if we get to the ascension timeline, our DNA is not hacked? Exactly. That means that instead of your chakras being slightly askew, your chakras become perfectly in alignment. You are no longer hacked. That's exactly right. The ascension timeline means all of your chakras are perfectly lined up just like they are in my pictures. Like I only draw pictures of ascended, beautiful people. That's it. Yeah, Patricia says, I'm aware of the hack. Kat says, we have those yummy tomatoes? Yeah, heirloom, ugly but yummy. That's totally what and they were all volunteers. Gala says, my grandma said, if bugs don't eat it, you should not eat it. I was upset because I've seen a bug on her apple. That's beautiful, and it's very truthful. It's totally true. Yeah, so we have all of these things that are made to sanitize our food and make it look like it's wax food, like it's not real food, and that's what people want to eat, like it's crazy. So, but the people in this class are clearly tuned in. Patricia says, so physicality is not supposed to exist? No, but we'll go through this. Then we wouldn't have need a red chakra. I'm truly curious, not being antagonistic. So yeah, we are supposed to have a red chakra. It's a huge part of the rainbow. It's the biggest proportion of the cake. But the red chakra is not supposed to be made out of spoiled, horrible flour. It's supposed to be made out of wonderful, light, fluffy, all-purpose flour. So what we've been experiencing, and perhaps what your inner angst feelings are coming from, is that the flour around here is rotten. Like you're making cakes out of rotten flour. There's profound foundational issues with the recipe of life around here. We're supposed to be able to make cookies of reality not using rotten flour. So that's why I keep saying the solution is not Calgon, take me away. Calgon is not the name of an alien species. Calgon was this old thing. The lady's washing her hair. She's like, Calgon, take me away. She's like, get me out of here, escape from reality. That was the idea because her kids were driving her crazy. It's a very old commercial. I'm sure no one knows about it. But what we're supposed to do is not wish for escapism. We're not supposed to wish to get out of our bodies, or some UFO saucer, pick me up, Scotty, beam me up, get me out of here because it's lazy down here. Like what you're supposed to do is stay here and make this place better. You're supposed to stay in your body not get out of your body, but change and transform what your body is, like caterpillar to butterfly. Ellie, good to see you. Says, Aurora, for the homework, is it red and indigo or red and light blue? Looks like light blue. Thank you. Thank you so much for that clarification. It is red and dark blue, even though my pen, my colored pencil was not a very vivid dark blue. So the sixth zone that we're going up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that one. If we're doing it on the piano, that would be the one going up the body. It would be red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo. This one right here. So there's a profound relationship between that area of our body and your physical area of your body. The two are profoundly interrelated. Pedro says, we become rainbow humans. You are rainbow humans. But for up until this point, there have been dim light bulbs that closed down all of the other colors. And this is all that anybody saw. And said, that's what it is to be a human, and the existence is suffering. Now go suffer. I'm like, that's not what it is to be a human. To be a human is all of this other stuff too, and then it's not so poopy. I'm sorry if I get silly. Patricia says rainbow includes red, and red is the physical. That's exactly right, but the experience of being the physical is not meant to be defined as inadequate or causing suffering. Daniela, oh, Daniela, I'm happy that you're here, and I'm going to answer your question that you asked in your email in level 2, because it's all about Merkaba, and we're doing advanced Merkaba. So if you're here, stay tuned, and I understand if you need to step out, it'll be in the archive. Your question now says, is it a silly question to ask if we must protect and preserve our physical body in order to ascend? Why is Buddha typically depicted as fat and happy? Did he just live at a time when food was less poisonous so he could consume more of it? What a great question. So I'll give a twofold answer. One is the answer, what are you trying to do with your body to ascend? And the other is the answer that is a cultural answer about the cultural filters of Buddhism and how they look at the world over there. So the first answer is just the abstract, galactic Aurora is telling you that your body is the only thing that matters. My dress does not matter, and how clean my dress is does not matter. How wonderful quality silver is my necklace does not matter at all. What matters is the molecular structure and nutrient availability in my physical body. That is all that matters. Like I keep trying to tell everyone, please prioritize your body and your nutritional needs, because that literally becomes the transformative fuel for your consciousness journey as a springboard to move forward into even more expansive, things that you can do. So if you have limited resources, don't invest in a dress, don't invest in a sweater, invest in the best food and nutrients and body care that you can for your body, because you will not take your dress with you, but you will take your body with you, but in a transformed format. So what does that mean? What does it mean if you're amputated? If you only have 2 limbs, do you only bring 2 limbs with you? These are big questions, and I'm happy to go through them and everything like that. But the answer is, even if you have deficiencies or amputations in your body, they can be healed and rectified, but you're trying not to have amputations and deficiencies. You're trying to maintain your wholeness and your structural integrity as much as you possibly can on this journey, because you don't get to just ditch your body. That's the whole point of being accountable and taking responsibility. You're technically in charge of your body. So let's say you chose I'm going to get a giant tattoo that says I heart mom on my arm. You chose to do that on your arm. You now have all these little pinpricks and all these little micro tiny particles and stuff like that in your body. You have to deal with that. Same thing if you had dentistry done, you have mercury fillings, you have whatever, you had surgery, you have scarring, you have implants. People have all sorts of things like physical implants, either artificial organs or breasts or something like that. People do all sorts of stuff to their bodies here, and one must be held accountable for one's choices in the body, because there's this idea, maybe it's a new age or a religious idea, that you're just going to ditch your body. This whole idea, you're going to get out of your body, you're going to go on an astral voyage, you're just going to leave your body like a dead rotting corpse behind. No, that is not what you're going to do. You're actually going to have to take responsibility for everything you've ever done and everything you've ever ate and everything you've ever not done. If you're I really should get out there and exercise, but I'm going to eat the potato chips instead. You have to take responsibility for that choice. And that's it. And that's also why there's no argument. There's no but, there's none of that. It's only what you have done with your body. And I know that there's challenges, there's resource challenges, and there's social caste systems and all these different things. Can you afford a gym membership? Can you afford this food? There's all of that. And I'm in solidarity with you. I've had all the same challenges of trying to be here, taking care of my body in the best way that I can with a world where there's poisoned food and the good food is way more expensive, where we're asked to do tasks that are sometimes bad for our physical body but give you money. I did lots of jobs like that. I'm like, this job is not that good for my back, but yet I get $10, so I do the job. Like, this is life as a domesticated human. And I've been through all of those experiences along with you. But what I'm finding is it's necessary for me to heal and recalibrate in response to all of those things, because when you get to that ascension timeline, you don't have all of the scarring and inadequacies anymore of all the things that you went through. So you get to be a whole person, but it's a big journey of like getting that, it's healing, becoming whole again. So the real question, the real answer is your body as you ascend is your fuel for transformation. The answer about the Buddha has to do with their religious stuff and ideas of asceticism that come from Hinduism in the Far East, where there's a lot of people that are holy people or gurus or ascetics, like people who renounce the world and they say they are more spiritually advanced, and they're very, very skinny. And so Siddhartha is a historical figure that came out of that cultural filter. He was holding up the cultural filter that spiritual guys are skinny and they don't eat nothing. And he did that for a long, well, first he was a prince and he had everything. Then he found that there was suffering. Then he's like, oh, I'm renouncing. I'm going to be like one of these skinny spiritual guys and I eat nothing. And then he got super, super skinny. And then he figured out like, hey, this is dumb. Being super, super skinny ain't helping anybody. And I should have enough food to eat, but not too much. But then now there's all these, statues that show him as being like very fat and ample and everything. It's the idea that he kind of like relaxed the self-reduction. He relaxed like these very strict laws that he was holding himself to. And after that in his life, he did what the Buddhists now do. Like he just had a beggar's bowl and he ate what people gave him in his beggar's bowl. So he just, kind of like went through, and he ate vegetables and he ate meat. And so they say that he died of tainted pork. This is the current information we have about the historical guy named Siddhartha, who was also turned into a religious figure named the Buddha. Okay. So that's why they sometimes show him being skinny, but they sometimes show him being fat. But I would say like in your own body, it is way better to have like just the right amount of insulation and body fat, but not excess, because the excess is usually unprocessed emotional stuff. And also even skinny people can have unprocessed emotional stuff because you can store up fat in places like your liver and the interior of your organs. So it's good to do things that go on a pilgrimage. And a pilgrimage doesn't mean that you do something religious. It means you do a lot of cardio. Like you walk, like these religious pilgrims, they would like walk like during the Crusades. They would go through like all of these countries in Europe. Or some people will perambulate. They'll walk around a mountain. They do this in the Far East. Like you go, you walk, and the more that you walk, the more that it brings out like stored, I want to say crapola, like stored unresolved emotional stuff that needs to get released so that you can be free. And it's one really good way of transforming. So yeah, blah, blah, blah. So yes, thank you. I'm not sure if I went too far afield there. Pedro says, I think it has some cultural stuff. Yeah, about fat, meaning wealthy, exactly. That's also the fat Buddhas are like the relaxed Buddhas. They're like, I'm so happy, like I'm achieving enlightenment and everything is great. Like I think it's more symbolic than physical. And I definitely think it's better to be more slender and definitely not obese. And what's really making people obese in this world right now is genetically modified crapola and corn syrup and everything. Like it's toxic. The food system here is intentionally toxic and it's intentionally filled with addictive substances. It takes a huge amount of willpower to avoid all of them and keep yourself healthy on any level. So my hat is off to all of you who even make an effort, because sometimes it can be very difficult to avoid these things. And there's things that I literally can't eat. Like I can't eat the corn syrup and stuff like that because I have to avoid it because of my brain. But I know that it's like in everything. So that just means like I have to bring my own food everywhere because it's so hard to not, it's just not available. But one day in the utopian fantasy world, we'll actually have real food available. Okay, let me keep going. Meaty Man says, I don't understand how sun gazing works and how eating light works. Well, I have a whole lesson that is actually lesson 13 about sun gazing. So perhaps I can table your question until then, because I think that we're not ready for it yet as a class. But really, sun gazing is the bypassing of the physical levels of reality and going directly to where the consciousness and nutrition comes from. So I'm giving you the intellectual idea, I'm planting the seed, but we're going to wait until lesson 13 for that. Meaty Man says, still not 100% sure what you're saying. Is eating plant-based good for me or not? I'm feeling a lot lighter and different since eating vegan and vegetarian. I want to eat a rainbow for breakfast and dinner, organic rainbow if possible. So here's my answer about veganism and vegetarianism. And please, I'm not intending to alienate anyone who might be very invested in their particular dietary plan. The real thing that you need to do is avoid genetically modified crap, avoid chemicals, avoid pesticides. So in this world, it might be more sensible to choose to eat meat and animal protein sources if all that you have available to you are soy-based and genetically modified soy fake meat products. Like there's, veganism, but there's like junk food veganism where you're eating like whatever, fake and bacon and all that kind of stuff. Soy is really horrible, and genetically modified soy is horrible. And this soy is also not good for the environment. I can do a whole diatribe. Everybody needs to go in the direction they need to go. Some people are very fat and they need to slim down. Some people are very slim and they need to get more. They need to bulk up. So some people might be very dense and maybe they need to eat less meat and they need to do vegan for a little while. I don't think that vegan, the way that is practiced by humans right now, is a sustainable or sensible dietary approach. I think that it is actually fashionable starvation, and it is a way, if you are too obese, to get smaller. But I don't think that it is good for a person who is not obese to be vegan and to sustain it for longer than 2 years. I think that it has horrible side effects on like the bones and the teeth structure that you're literally not getting enough. You must also understand about this. Not only are a lot of vegetables sprayed with chemicals, soil has been depleted, so there are not enough micronutrients in a lot of the vegetables that you want to eat. You want to sustain yourself on vegetables, you're going to have to grow your own garden and make sure it's got plenty of micronutrients and all of that. Like, I don't think that you can really live in that way with our factory farmed vegetables. Like, none of our food supply is sustainable like that. And I think that the ideal diet is really to do more what an indigenous or a natural person would do, is eat seasonally. Hey, something like, let's say I'm a vegan and I want to eat like strawberries in the middle of December. Strawberries do not grow in December. Strawberries are for like, April, May, or maybe June. Like, they are not for December. So it is an impractical, and I would say, I don't know how to say, like, somewhat privileged. I don't know if privilege is the word. Like you ain't gonna get strawberries in December. Like, that is not a sensible diet. You're supposed to eat different stuff in December. And it might be good to eat nothing but fruit smoothies in the summertime, but in the wintertime, you need to eat a lot of root vegetables and stuff that like gives you long-lasting energy so that you can make it through the wintertime. Like, you're supposed to eat seasonally. You're supposed to eat what's available. You're supposed to eat what is much closer to nature. And so I think that is a huge distortion. Like, I really don't support the vegan, vegetarian industry the way that it is presently promoted, and the way that it is promoted as a not only lifestyle, but like philosophical approach, and especially the huge amounts of judgment on self and others. I don't think any of that is helpful. And I recognize that other people might have a different viewpoint than I do, but that is what I say. So in this time and place, I will just say, in my approach, I try to eat the foods that are the highest nutrient foods, that are affordable and available to me, and that have the least amount of pollution. So like, I love fish. I would love to eat a whole bunch of fish and a whole bunch of salmon every day. I don't eat a lot of fish because we have horrible Fukushima, cesium-137, and there's so many other contaminants in fish. And don't eat farmed salmon and all these different things. Like, I have a lot of questions to get through, and I'm actually getting very tired. And I have another whole thing to get. So let me do a few more questions. We got to get on to level 2. Don't get me started on veganism, guys. Just eat some freaking food, please. Because I think that veganism is like, I'm not allowed to eat that. I'm not allowed to eat that. Like, please eat some food. That's it. Don't be at odds with the idea that you have to eat food. Eat some food. Chloe says, as a visual person, have you ever drawn a person whose chakras are unbalanced? No, I never have. I draw them all perfect. Nope. I haven't drawn anybody who's not. Pedro says, save your mouth, crystals, use a blender. Actually do lots of juicing and stuff. Hans said, never heard of people in the West ascending. Could it be that cases of spontaneous self-combustion is in fact people ascending into rainbow body? Good question. I'm not sure if some of this spontaneous self-combustion or partial self-combustion might actually be transformation into the rainbow body. Like, that might be, that a person just did it. But a lot of the people who are reported to have spontaneously combusted, they didn't necessarily seem like they didn't seem like they were spiritual or focusing on attainment. So I'm not sure about that. That's a really good question. Jules says, not a Buddha, a co-opted pagan kitchen god from rural China. Interesting. Pedro says, is it true that our food cravings is our body asking for what it needs? I think it is to some extent, but I also think that some food cravings are nanotechnology and wetware and 5G controlled and part of hypnotic stimulation from cartoons and advertising. I think that a lot of cravings, it's like you see something on TV, you're like, oh, like, I want Taco Bell. Like, no, you don't want Taco Bell. Taco Bell is horrible for your intestines, and like, that will go through that will burn a hole in your anus. You do not want to eat that. But for some reason, this you know, glowing box tells you you want it, so you go out there and you get it. Like, that is not good food. So, I mean, if I listen to my body, if I'm like, oh, like, I really want, like, I want walnuts, like, I must need something in walnuts, like, I'll go out and get it. But I don't crave Taco Bell either. Jules says, Jules got some interesting stuff to say about China. When China became Buddhist, the Theravada Indian Buddhas are the most authentic, then Thai. Interesting. Jeffrey is saying, by taking responsibility for the things we do to our bodies, do you mean karmically? Yes, karmically, and also just in practical reasons. Your body is like your vehicle that you're driving for many, many miles. And everyone here thinks, I'm going to die. It ain't gonna matter. I'm gonna get a new car. It's so, everyone looks at it like disposable car, like drive this car for 5 years and turn it on a manager special, you know, like rebate. We're gonna rebate this thing. Like, no, you don't get a deal. No, you don't get a manager special. You have to take responsibility for your body and everything you've been through and everything you've done to it, and then everything that you haven't done to it. So that's just really big. And like, a lot of things can be healed with our superhuman powers when these superhuman powers come online, but up until that point, like, you have to deal with all of these deficits. So I'm dealing with this body that has a lot of neurological deficits. It's very challenging, it's very uncomfortable sometimes, but I know that there's the possibility for profound healing. That's why I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to get rid of this car and get a manager special upgrade to my new body. No. And that's why I think that's unhealthy to think in terms of reincarnation. Like, I'm going to die and get reincarnated in a new body. Who cares if I take care of this body? Like, you're not supposed to be that way. And also, we're at a new time and time. Like, we're not at the time and time where you're just going to keep on being recycled. Like, we're at a different time and time. I don't know if that is even making sense, like what I'm trying to say to you guys. We're not at the time anymore where you're going to have to die and get a new body to learn new lessons and go to a new place and do all this different stuff. Like, we resolve it all right now. Yeah, Jeffrey, you have the capacity to heal all of those surgical procedures. It is just like, you know, like whatever, if you had your tooth drilled, even if you were a tiny child and you didn't really make the choice, that's your enamel that is gone. Now you have metal there instead of your enamel. It is possible for us to regrow our enamel. So we each have to take responsibility for all of this, but it's just not at that level yet. But healing of all the things that have been done to our body. How about orthodonture? Get, you know, something like, you might have been a tiny child, you might have been in first grade and they put braces on your face. That ain't your fault, but you are dealing with the after effects of it. Or and think of children's surgeries, all of these things. There's a lot of things that happen to us, to our bodies, before we are formally in charge of them. And then also we have to take responsibility for what we do to our bodies in adulthood. It's part of the healing procedure. Let me get on to level 2, guys. Good. Oh, okay. So here's one more question, then we'll go into level 2. So wait, 2 questions, then we'll go into level 2. Pedro wants to know about, when we use a pyramid to preserve food, does its energy act in the physical level? Yes, the pyramids and violet glass and other things that you can do to preserve food without refrigeration means that you're preserving biophotons and you're preserving energy. So instead of putting something in a clear glass and allowing light and other oxidation processes to go to it, you can put it in a violet glass jar, and that's what like preserves essential oils and herbs and things like that for longer. It's because the frequency of light that gets through that jar actually preserves the food. So the pyramid and the structure of that is similar. It's energy and it's biophotons, and it's actually affecting the both physical and non-physical. And Angel says, did I go through a forgetting process after I came into the human body? Did I have access to absolutely all higher dimensional aspects of self? And then she asks, are there people who are walk-ins and don't remember it for a while, or just a regular awakening activation process? There's a whole long discussion that should be had about what is and is not a walk-in. Because I know there are a lot of people that are right now having an awakening and integration process that I think is very positive, but I would not describe as being a walk-in. Where I'm saying more a walk-in is like if you have an actual physical metabolic death, and then a destruction of that ego, and then a completely new persona or being that comes into that body. So I think that it's essential to use the right language so that we're talking about the right things, but I also validate the experience that some people are having now of having their ego become a vestigial shell, like coming out of their caterpillar and really turning into a new format. Perhaps we need to have a new description of it. In my experience of being a walk-in, yes, I remembered everything that I came from, but yes, I also had and still have profound neurological disarrangement. So it was very, very difficult in the first few years that I was here for me to understand what was going on. My cognitive processing was very, like a lot of it was the brain that I'm using right now made it very difficult for me to understand things, to articulate things, and to speak to be linear, to do all the things that I do now, like with effort. People think it just comes easily. But yeah, my perception was structured very, very differently. But I always knew who I was. I always knew where I came from, but I couldn't always articulate it. And I was pretty much, I just had to hit the ground running and just kind of like figure stuff out. I was wanting to say crap, figure crap out, trial and error as I go. Like I just had to kind of like survive and do it. So although I knew who I was and I knew what I was here for, like I just had to be like, okay, let's just do this. Everyone's doing this, do this. Like that's what it was like, until I kind of became more not only empowered, but also better, had seizures better controlled and everything like that, so that I could be more expressive and make more sense to the people around me. Okay, so wait, let me stop level 1. Level 1 was an hour and a half. Let me now do level 2. It's gonna be a marathon, guys. Hold on a minute.